All right, it has been a little while since we've done a quick tips and tricks video as far as mixing. And today I got a couple mixing tricks to get your drums and 808s to hit a little bit harder. Let's get into it. So the first thing we're going to go over is using clipping plugins on your drums to get them to hit a bit harder. So you already have the mix fully ready. It sounds good, but you just want to get the drums to hit a little bit harder. I like to reach for clippers to do that. So on the kick, I have a free clipper called G-Clip pulled up, and we'll go ahead and turn it on. It's set to default, so there's nothing going on. Let's go ahead and press play. So the kick's already hitting pretty hard, but let's say I wanted to keep it at that same dB, but I want to get it to hit a little bit harder. And we're going to do the same thing with the clap and the snare with a different clipper. But let's say we like the mix, it sounded cool, but we're like, all right, let's get these drums to hit a little bit harder, but I like the levels that they're sitting at. We have headroom, everything's good. So we could reach for a clipper. This one's actually really cool because you can see where it's peaking and then you can adjust so and visually see it. And a lot of clippers don't actually have that. So if I press play, this is the signal right here. So to make this simple, we can pull this clip down to right where the peaks of our kick are hitting. So let's press play. We can actually make this bigger. Just increases the size if you need to wear glasses like me. So that's cool. Now we pretty much set the ceiling of the clipper right at the peaks. So now what we're going to do is start to push gain into it. And what that's going to do is push our kick up in volume into the clipper more. But since we have this threshold set right here, it's not going to let it go over. So our kick's going to stay at the same dB it was hitting at, but we're going to push gain into it, causing the clipper to activate and start clipping the signal when it crosses, and it's going to hit harder. And the cool thing about this one as well is you have a softness knob. So you can have a hard clip like this or a soft clip. So let's push in like maybe 3 or 4 dB. So it's going to depend. I'm going to over exaggerate it real quick so you can hear it, but you can see right here when I play the kick, this is what it's clipping. So we're pushing it over, but it's actually staying at the same dB if I turn it on and off. But it's hitting way harder. So what we could do is push this in a little bit more if we wanted to. Let's go with somewhere in between, like a harder clip and a softer clip, maybe somewhere around 50%. Let's see what this sounds like. So obviously you hear that that's too much, but I just kind of wanted to over exaggerate it because you can get all different types of sounds with this. So we're going to go like, I don't know, 4.2, something like that. And we're going to mess with the softness and let's see what we can get dialed in. So for this specific track, I'm going to go a little bit on a harder clip, and I don't want to have it be a little too soft because I kind of want it to be a little aggressive. So let's hear before and after. You're going to see it's peaking the same, but it sounds a lot louder. So clippers are great to use on kicks. I love G-Clip since it's free as well. It's just one of those plugins that's free that's just really good that I've had forever. Let's go over to the clap and the snare. I loaded up a plugin called JST Clip. This is a very good plugin for snares. For this beat, I have a clap and a snare. I probably should have chose a beat with a snare being like the driving force of it. But because it had both, I wanted to use it to show you how this can affect both of these actually. So let's go ahead and get rid of the melodies and let's just play this clap and the drums. So for this clap, we can go into JST Clip. And for this, we can push our input in right here. We can ×2 multiply it to double what we are pushing into the clipper. And then we have a mix knob and a trim knob, which is the output gain. So for this, all I'm going to do is push this in until I start to hear it sound a little too much, back it off, and then we'll use the mix knob. And let's just blend that in with the original. Somewhere around here, and we'll turn it off. So a little bit under 12, and then we can trim it back right here. And let's hear before and after. So I don't always clip claps. I like to clip snares mostly, but it sounds good. It's adding just a little bit to it. What I really want to do is use the times two multiplier, really push it in for this snare and get this snare to just sound real beefy and then blend it in. So let's go ahead with times two multiplier on and push it in. And I'll go ahead and take off the clap so you can just hear what's going on with the snare. And let's blend that in. Let's start at 0 and start to blend it in until it sounds good. It's a little bit too much, probably somewhere around here. And then let's turn it on and off so I can make sure that the volume's the same so you can actually hear the difference. All right, this has to go down by probably like 3 or 4 dB. So it's actually a little bit quieter when it's on, but you're going to hear it louder. So the only reason I'm going to leave it like that is so you can actually hear that since it's peaking a little bit quieter, but actually getting a little louder, it makes more sense. I could go in there and fine tune it to where it's exactly the same, but I think it's just going to be a kind of good example to show that even when it's on, it's a little bit quieter, you're hearing it louder. The perceived loudness is louder. So let's go ahead and hear it on and off. Here's off, on. So clipping your drums, if you already have a good mix, can be a really good way to get your drums just to hit a little bit harder if you want them to just punch through the mix. All right, so the second thing we're going to go over is something that I went over in a tutorial recently and a few of you were interested in, was adding distortion to an open hi-hat when the open hi-hat is accenting the downbeat. So for instance, this open hi-hat hits with the downbeat right when the beat drops. So every time there's a kick on the one, there's going to be an open hi-hat. So what I'm going to do for this is actually turn this up a little bit. Let's bring the rest of the beat back in. So what we're going to do is actually have Fruity Blood Overdrive. So it sounds cool, but it's pretty dry. So what I'm going to actually do is just distort this like crazy and then blend it back in. And you're going to hear when it hits that it just sounds like it's hitting a lot harder and it's layered with the kick, 808, open hi-hat, and hi-hat all together. Let's actually make it a little bit brighter. And then we can go over here and bring the post gain down so we can level match with the original. Let's see where we're at with this. Get it closer. A little bit louder. We'll bring it a little bit more. Here it is by itself without any processing. And then with. So you can kind of hear that it's beefing it up and it just sounds a little bit thicker. Let's hear it again before and after. And now that layered in with the beat. Small things like that can really make the beat sound like it's hitting a little bit harder, especially on open hi-hats. Something that I really like to do. All right, and the last thing we're going to talk about is adding saturation or distortion to your 808 to bring up the upper harmonic content of it and add those upper frequencies by distorting the 808 to get it to hit harder or louder on phones, smaller speakers, and just overall really utilizing upper harmonic content. So here's the 808 by itself. I want to add some distortion to it or saturation. I have two open right here. I have Kramer Tape by Waves and then Fast Distortion from FL Studio. We might use both. It really depends. But what I want to do with this is utilize upper harmonic content to get it to sound louder just by having frequencies in the higher range of the 808 register more. So an easy way to do that is to add saturation or distortion. So let's go ahead and open up Kramer Tape. See what's going on right now. Just by itself, this needs to be brought down. I like to keep it under 0 or close to 0, depending how it sounds. It's all preference. And then right here with the flux knob, let's actually turn this down. We don't need any of that. So then we can go over here on the flux knob and add a lot of saturation or a little bit. Let me go ahead and show you what it sounds like over exaggerated. Let's bring this up. So let's go a small amount right here. And then let's go over to the distortion, turn it on, and add a small bit of distortion to it and see if we can get both of these to kind of get us like a nice tone that we want to go for. So I'm going to bring the threshold down a little bit and just press play and see what this sounds like. Let me go ahead and solo it so you can hear it. So that's too much. Let's back it off. A little bit under 12. So now you could see if we're going to bring it back to where it was, it's going to be a lot louder. So here's before, after. So you're hearing that it's registering a lot louder, especially if you're on a phone. You're going to hear that a lot more because that speaker is so small that the upper harmonic content's really going to shine through the phone way more than the very low subby frequencies of the 808. So now let's hear it in context with the mix before and after. So with just a couple of small different things that we're doing to the drums, with clipping the drums as far as the kick, the snare, the clap, and then adding some saturation and distortion to the 808, you don't have to do both. I rarely do both of these, but I kind of just wanted to show you and ended up keeping both of them on anyways. Usually I just end up picking one saturation, distortion plugin and kind of going with it. But threw both of them on, forgot to turn one of them off in between, and it came out sounding pretty cool. So I'll leave it for right now. And then the open hi-hat, adding a little bit of distortion to it, bringing up the volume to kind of just accent that downbeat, just really helps out, really makes the drums sound like they're hitting a lot harder. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. If you did like this video, leave a thumbs up. You guys can follow me on all social medias at Lifestyle Did It. Make sure to hit my site, lifestyledidit.com, for everything else. Other than that, subscribe to your boy, push notifications. Thanks.